So when I hit rock bottom, like I couldn't heal it, nothing was working, even the prescription wasn't working. I still had outbreaks. Um, I think I just prayed for a miracle. I was like, if you do not bring me something, I'm gonna die. Like, get me something now. I need something now. And actually, I saw Louise Hay. Do you know that author? Yeah, you can heal your life. I saw her on Oprah or something, and this was the day I lost it. She was so positive and she had so much light, and she's like, you can heal yourself. And I was getting angrier and angrier every time she said that. And then I cursed at her and I turned her off the TV and then I bawled my eyes out. And that's when I was like, bring me something. Like I used to be like that. I used to be positive until
Mm.
this rape thing happened and this condition took over my life. And the next day I met my breathwork coach.
Welcome to the Deeper Awareness Podcast, where we delve into the depths of our inner selves, uncovering authenticity and transformation. Join us for enlightening conversations on breathwork, self-discovery, and the profound journey within. I'm your host, Josh Perry, joined by the delightful Hannah Oxley. Let's begin.
Hello and welcome to the Deeper Awareness Podcast. I am so happy that you are here. I am also so happy that I get to be here. I have been loving this whole journey of building this podcast with Josh. If you told me that I would be hosting a podcast a year ago, I would not believe you whatsoever. I just think this is, we get this life. We don't know what has come in the past, what is coming in the future for us. So just my message to you today is to just create whatever it is. This is your life. You get to be the boss. So just do it, do the damn thing and show up and put yourself out there. That's really the message of this podcast today. Our guest today mentions that at some point where she says, just put yourself out there. It's scary, but we just have to do it if you want to succeed in any of your endeavors. So like this for me is still terrifying to record these little intros, and I still can hardly even watch or listen to my own voice. So even with the fear and anything that scares you, just go do it. Just go do it. Everything, the world is not going to crumble beneath you if you do something a little scary, a little out of your comfort zone today. So I just encourage you to follow your heart. So with all of that said, I'm really excited about our guest today. We've had so many breathwork facilitators on the show so far. We all know, Josh and I know all of them from the Pause program that we both graduated from, got our certifications from. So this is our first breathworker. She calls herself a breathworker, which I like. I would always use the term breathwork facilitator, but breathworker just flows off the tongue a little bit nicer. So I'm so excited for you to hear her story. Today we have Kimberly Rose, and you might know her from her Instagram page of Breathe with Kimberly Rose. When Josh said that she is coming on the podcast, I got a little nervous because I looked at her Instagram and she has like 17,000 followers. And I was like, oh, she's going to be on our little show. But it was such a great experience to chat with her. Of course, that celebrity part of my brain, got softer as soon as she popped on because she's so down to earth and so welcoming, and also so willing to help fellow breath workers out there trying to make it, because she's been doing this for 17 plus years. And it's just really exciting to see all of the different ways breathwork comes into people's lives, and how when you become certified, how all the different ways that people choose to help others with breathwork. So I'm so excited for you to hear all of her little tips. And yeah, without further ado, please welcome Kimberly Rose. Enjoy the show. Kimberly,
Hi.
I'm so excited to meet you.
Oh, you too, Hannah. Nice to meet you. And Josh,
You too.
thanks for reaching out.
Yeah, I'm glad it all worked out. So
Yeah.
So you're in Pacific time?
Yeah. Yeah. Where are you guys located?
I'm over on the East Coast. I'm right outside of Boston.
Oh, nice. How lovely.
I'm in Salt Lake City.
Cool. Yeah, I'm just south of Portland,
Oh,
Oregon.
nice.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to go out there.
Yeah. It's beautiful. It just rains a lot.
Yeah.
I went there once for a girl. She was living there.
Uh-huh.
And I was just driving around and I was like, oh my gosh, it's so like viney and green and all these little hills. And I would go around a corner and then I was lost because just all these
Yeah.
pockets of hills.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds beautiful. Did you grow up out there?
Yeah. Yeah. I've actually been in I was living in Santa Barbara for 10 years because I actually don't like I'm from Oregon, but I just don't like to be here in the winter. It's too rainy. And so I just made a home base in Santa Barbara. And so I was there for the last 10 years and then COVID brought me back here to Oregon. So I guess I'm staying here. It all just kind of works here. So I'm like, all right, I guess I'll stop resisting it.
I did the same thing with resisting my hometown, but here I am, and I love
Yeah, yeah,
it.
the last place I want to be is my hometown. It's
Mhm.
actually really hard to do breath work here in my hometown because I'm just Kimberly, I'm just like, oh, the dumb Kimberly. Like, what is she? She's breathing people. Wouldn't we be dead if we weren't? I'm just like, aren't we already breathing? Like, it's just,
I get all of that. I get all of
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
But it's like if I can make it here, it's like New York City.
Oh,
If I can make it
yeah.
here, I can make it anywhere because if
Oh,
I can
there's
go through that
totally,
resistance and that fear that, you know,
yeah. And
the people.
there's only like 10,000 people in the town that I live in. So if it wasn't for social media, I would be having two or three jobs right now. So thank God for Instagram because I'd be doing what I always have done, having
Hmm.
two or three jobs outside of breath work. So
Hmm.
um I
Yeah.
like to help other breath workers like, hey, this is how I'm doing it, and some people don't want to hear it. And I'm like, but you guys, if you do it this way, I swear it'll work. You just have to do it. And so anyway, the right people, I try
Hmm.
to tell other breath workers like how I'm doing it and
Well, you
whatever.
can totally share that here because
Oh, I'd
one of
love
like
to.
Josh's intention, like he just keeps having this calling to, because we graduated from the same pause breathwork
Oh
facilitator
yeah, yeah.
mentorship. And so he keeps just having this need. He's like, I want to help people. He's like, but I feel like after someone gets certified in breathwork, it's like, what now? So he keeps, I'm speaking for you, Josh, but he keeps feeling like he needs to help those people specifically that
Yeah.
trying to, because there's so many blocks that like, because it's that same voice that you hear like,
Yeah.
I breathe, what do you mean? It's like everybody gets those people, so it's like how can you work with that and
Yeah.
talk it through?
Yeah, after your training, what do you do? It's like, well, I did a lot of free breath work. I mean, you have to really put yourself out there, which is so uncomfortable. And there was a time where no one would do breath work here in Oregon. And I was living in Bend, Oregon for a couple years, and everyone wanted it for free. I'm like, you guys, I can't do this for free. Like, come on. And they're having all these breakthroughs. And then I just heard this voice, and it's like, pack up your bags, go to Cali, go to California. And I did. I left with $90 in my account. I'm like, just as long as I can get to San Jose, I'll get booked out once I'm there and the right people, it's all referral. Like, hey, can you ask your friend if they want a session? And, you know, like there's some kind of exchange or food or sleeping on their couch or something. Like this was like 11 years ago that I was doing that. And so, yeah, you do have to put yourself out there, but because of Instagram, it's so much faster.
Mm.
So it's so much faster. It just takes time. And it's not easy being a breath worker. It's not at first.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. And I can't wait to hear about your story because out here in like Massachusetts and Boston, like there's I've actually done a lot of work on my Google SEO, whatever. So when people Google breathwork near me, I come up, which I'm like, yes, like
That's amazing.
because there's really nobody else around here. So, but
Right.
I'm taking that as a positive. It's like if someone
Yes.
needs it, they're gonna come to me, and
Yeah.
I'm hoping that more people, more breathwork facilitators pop up around here, because I know I'm not for everyone. So, but I just think it's so beautiful that, like, I just had somebody come. It was my I have my little basement. I have people lie down right here on
Uh-huh.
this comfy rug. But so it's the same thing. Like my friend's boss, she's like, my boss is so stressed. He needs to come see you. So he was just here a couple of days ago, and he's just this, like, Boston accent, construction, Italian guy. And my favorite is when people, like, the first things that they say when they open up their eyes, and his was, where the fuck did I just go?
Yeah. That's the best. Yeah. What the F just happened? What? How is that even possible from breathing? I know, it is so
Yeah.
cool.
And so I love it when it's the least expecting people. It's not like someone that
Yeah.
does yoga already, someone like
Yeah.
he has never heard of meditation before, and he was so willing. He knew he needed it. He knew he needed something. So
That's amazing.
that's where I have all my hope for with all those people.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
And
so curious about the 17 years of it. Like
yeah.
like I was just saying, like, it's so hard nowadays, but I can't imagine 17 years ago, like, how
Oh my
people are
gosh.
responding.
Yeah, there was a lot of resistance. Like it took people in this area where I live in Oregon, I mean, I'm now breathing people here in the area. And I mean, it took about 10 years or so of being like, hey, can I give you a breathwork session for free? For free. And then, it took that long, but that was just my journey. So I had to really, it's very humbling. And as a breath worker, when you have this like magic for people and you have this gift to show them, and I have 5 Geminis in my chart, so I could get really cocky. And I was like, I'm a master breath worker. This is in the beginning. I'm like, I help some, whatever. Anyway, and so it's like I had to be humbled. I had to, because I kind of got cocky with it in the beginning. And then it's like the divine just smacked me every time I got cocky with it. And it's like, hey, that's not why you're doing this. Like, you're not here to be praised. It's like you have this really, as a breath worker, and you both have been trained to do this, it's like you have this really sacred gift to show other people. And so I had to be humbled, and I had to struggle for at least 10 years doing that. I'm not saying that that has to happen to you guys, because people were not open to it 17 years ago as much as they are now. Now people are just so stressed. They want something. And it just comes into people's lives, as you know, right when they need it, because breath work is the real deal. I mean, it's so fast. It's so fast. So yeah. So it was hard. It was really hard, but I had no other choice. It was one of those kind of like God moments. It was like, hey, this is what I want you to do. And I'm like, hell no, I'll never make money doing this. I'll never get married. I'll never have kids. I already saw like my 10-year plan ahead of me. And I was like, this is going to be absolutely struggle, because there's so much resistance when you talk about breathing with someone. Oh, it just activates all their trauma and birth trauma and just everything. It just activates all the shit we carry. And
Mhm.
so it's funny because I tell my boyfriend, I'm like, don't tell people that I do breath work. Just tell them I'm a therapist. Because it makes people upset. Like, wait, what kind of therapy? And then as soon as I say breath, whoo, they leave their body. So
Mhm.
um, yeah, I forgot what the question was, but it's so much better now to do breath work than it was 17 years ago.
I always get the, like, you help people with asthma? No.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So what I did was, even in the last few months, I switched it to like trauma release specialist,
Mm.
because
Mm.
that way it's like if I say, oh, I help people release trauma, then they're like, wait, what? How do you do that? Oh, we do this breathing therapy. I
Mm.
have to really just find every person that I've talked to breath work about. I'm really careful of how I word it. I kind of feel them and I'm like, okay, what should I say? How can I word this so that their soul understands what I'm saying? And but a lot of people in my area, they just leave their body as soon as I start talking about breathing. It's so funny. And I
It
do
is.
get made fun of a lot. So I'm so used to it though. I'm like, oh, F you guys, dude. You haven't what but what's funny is a lot of the people who've made fun of me over the last 17 years, their kids or someone in their family ends up doing a session with me. And then they're like, wait, what? So everyone's watching, no matter what, everyone's watching what you're doing. They're watching your stories, they're watching your Facebook and Instagram, and they're gonna follow your journey. You just don't give up. You just take your time. It does get easier and better. So
Mhm.
but
And I think it's just all about our own intention. And if we're in it for the right things, we're gonna get the right people following us and finding us. Like if we're in
yeah,
it for helping people connect deeper, whatever the intention is, like that's when the people are
yeah,
going to hear that. They're going to feel that through your Instagram stories.
yeah, totally. And it's like the right people will find your videos. It just I every day someone writes me like, "Oh, I found your video," or it just popped up, kept popping up. I mean, it just finds the right people. Um, and it's funny because I have people, they hang out for like 3 or 5 months and then maybe they'll do a $10 monthly group session, or they hang out for a while and they observe and get a feel, and then maybe they book a session. So it just I've really I every person I have learned so much from, because every session's different, as you know. And um yeah, it's a very humbling thing to be a breath worker.
Mhm.
You're constantly learning. You're constantly learning how to handle people, and or handle, how to get this work out there. It's like, how can we get this work out there without pissing people off? It's like, and I don't want to sound like I know. I really don't know that much. I'm just gifted with taking people through sessions. I don't know that much about oxygen and all the stuff. I don't. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. But for some reason, when people do a private session, they can release a lifetime of crap. And it's like, as you know, it's just like, it's mind blowing. It's
Mhm.
so,
And it
so
takes a special soul in order to hold all of that energy that gets released through somebody. I'm the
yeah.
same way. They're like, so the diet, tell me more about the diaphragm. I'm like, goes up and it
I,
goes down.
yeah, I don't know anything about how the body functions. I just know that when you start breathing, you can just feel everything starting to open up. And, I love breathing doctors and scientists and stuff, because then they can explain what's going on. I have no idea.
Hmm.
Um, I just know it's doing something.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
How did you guys get into breath work? How did you find this?
So, Josh, you want to go first?
So I was a mindset coach
Uh-huh.
and was really ultimately trying to heal myself first. I felt I grew up with a lot of shame, and so I was trying to change it at a brain level.
Hmm.
And then I had clients that I was taking them through processes. It was hypnosis, it was NLP, and I was helping them, fix their thoughts. They had better thoughts, but they still didn't feel different inside. And that was my experience too. And I was like, what is going on inside my body still? And that's where my journey led to breathwork. And so
Wow.
I tried YouTube. It was Wim Hof. I laid down and I breathed for 45 minutes. My body was vibrating, and I released sadness. And I was just
Mm,
like, what is this? What just happened? And so that was my journey of discovering it.
that's incredible.
I I was really sick. Like I had all these gut issues. And I feel
Mm,
like this is a similar story. A lot of women go through a bunch of gut issues like in their late 20s. And I was, because before that I was just living my life, like go to yoga every once in a while, like try to meditate, but like just, didn't feel like I needed it in any different way. But then I got really, really ill, and I was on all this medication, and I just wanted to like stop. I was like, everything stop. Like, I just feel like all this medication is making me worse. And I started trying to find like an online community of people maybe doing it like with a natural approach of healing their gut. And that's where I found somebody who was doing breath work. And she talks about how that helped with her ulcerative colitis and stuff. I'm like, well, how does breathing help? But, I'm open to anything at this point. I was so desperate. So I found, remember this one girl, I did one like practice session. She was actually doing through Pause, the program we did. She was doing practice sessions. And so that one, I was like, okay, like that was cool. Like I feel a little different. Then I found somebody else and I signed up for it. It was like a week later. I was like, I'm going to try this girl now. That was when I left my body, like just that crazy experience of like, oh my God, like I said the same thing that you mentioned. Like I just healed like something I didn't even know was bothering me. And it feels like it was in my gut. And so I just kept going through all of that and noticing how strong the brain gut connection is. And just kept going down that path. And I eventually was able to get a lot better. I went back to work, and I was like, now knowing what I know now, I'm like, this isn't it for me. This is not it for me. And so I decided to I got signed up to get certified, and I just biggest investment I've ever put in myself. And I'm just like, who's just signed me up for that? Like, I don't know who took over my body. I don't know what I'm doing. No one's going to understand this. And I thought I had to like move out west to find people that understood what I was doing. But like I said earlier, I was like, I can do this. I can do this here. And if I can do it here, like through all of the other townies that probably make fun of me because they remember who I was in kindergarten, they don't know who I am now. Like if I can do it in front of all of that with all that fear, I can do it. So that's what I've been doing. And it was amazing. It's been an amazing couple of years.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. Good for you. It's so scary to dive into that. But when you're doing the breath work, you can feel the body healing itself. So, um, how raw can I get? Because I have to, sometimes when I do podcasts, people are like, "Ooh, don't say that. That's too much." So
No, we are
I'm like,
all about the authenticity, bringing
and I'm like, well, if people just hear half of the story, like, come on, like let's give the full. So, a little bit about my story, how I got into breath work. Maybe 21 years ago, I was in a really traumatic experience, and this guy forced himself on me, and he was really strong, and basically he raped me. And 2 days later, I broke out with a STD. And so it was just like bee stings on my body. And so it was so traumatic. And I was raised in a really strict religious home. Like you wait till you're married to have sex and you're gonna go to hell if you don't, like that, so that type of really traumatic upbringing. It was really traumatic being raised in the religion I was raised in. And I had nuns, and they were very traumatic. And so I was constantly shamed growing up. And so that's what my body was carrying forever, right? So that's all I knew. So I was waiting until marriage to have sex. And so my skin broke out 2 days later. You go to the hospital, the doctor's like, you're going to have this the rest of your life. And I heard this whisper say like, you can heal, like don't, like pretty much don't attach, like you can heal this. And I was never raised like, oh, you can heal yourself ever. And but I heard this voice say you can heal yourself. And so I had a chronic skin flare up for probably 2.5 years. Just, you can't live your life, you're in bed a lot. You can't enjoy sex. You can't be with someone, right? Because you're going to give them something. And my body was in fight or flight for that time. And maybe I got like 3 or 5 days of relief, like if I changed my diet or I did all the things. I spent thousands of dollars getting all the right supplements, whatever there is, whatever. And it only gave me relief for a few days. And so when I had that chronic skin flare up constantly, just like bee stings, for 2.5 years, almost 3 years. And then I just hit rock bottom with it. I started drinking, I started taking Adderall, and then I really spiraled and I was starting to get suicidal. I didn't know that. I didn't know how bad Adderall was until, late years and years later. But and I just prayed for a miracle. I was like, why? I'm 22 years old. I should not be living like this. I should not be at the doctor's. Like I should be enjoying my life and partying and having a good time and blah blah blah. And so when I hit rock bottom, like I couldn't heal it, nothing was working. Even the prescription wasn't working. I still had outbreaks. Um, I think I just prayed for a miracle. I was like, if you do not bring me something, I'm gonna die. Like, get me something now. I need something now. And actually, I saw Louise Hay. Do you know that author? Yeah, You Can Heal Your Life. I saw her on Oprah or something, and this was the day I lost it. She was so positive and she had so much light, and she's like, you can heal yourself. And I was getting angrier and angrier every time she said that. And then I cursed at her and I turned her off the TV, and then I bawled my eyes out. And that's when I was like, bring me something. Like I used to be like that. I used to be positive until this rape thing happened and this condition took over my life. And the next day I met my breathwork coach. I met I I just met her through a friend. So that was on a Wednesday. I breathed on a Thursday, and then Friday, the next day, was the first breathwork school in Nashville, Tennessee. And so I don't know how she got me into school. I'm like, I don't want to go to school, but I just want to breathe. Like, don't make me breathe. I just need someone to vent to. I was very resistant with it. I was like, I don't need to breathe. I don't need to go over my birth trauma. Your birth has nothing to do with anything. Um, and but what happened in my very first session, I like saw the nuns and how they used to punish me for me being myself growing up. Every teacher I had was a nun, and that was just my experience. Not everyone has that experience with nuns, but eventually it got to my skin condition, and then I felt the oxygen healing my skin. And so I got like maybe 7 sessions in my first month of breath work, and my skin was clearing. And I'm like, whoa. And so I didn't do the breathwork school to become a breath worker at all. That was the last reason. But then by the end of the training, I was like, oh my God, I think this is what I'm supposed to do. Like, and I was very resistant, of course. But so that's my kind of like how I got into breath work and why. I just needed I wanted my skin to clear so I can just enjoy my life. And so I haven't had any problems with my skin since breathwork school. So
Wow.
it's in remission. Like it doesn't run my life anymore. Um, it's just amazing. And so sometimes like, because even every breathwork session that I did, it was just like it felt like forgiveness was flowing through my body. Like, oh, that was innocent and that was innocent, and they didn't mean that. And it's just like I I was forgiving the past with, through the breath, and my skin was clearing up and all the shame was releasing from my body, like a lifetime of shame. So, and I think it took like 5 to 6 months, somewhere in there, and I stopped having skin flare-ups. So I was healing it. And so yeah, that's how I got into it. Sorry, that was so long.
No, oh my gosh, don't be sorry. That was beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. So it's funny because now I get a lot of people who find me online. I work with a lot of people with chronic symptoms, duh, because I went through it. It's like breath workers get really scared, like sometimes like, well, you're gonna attract the right people who stuff that you've been through. So you'll know what to say and how to guide them through the sessions and stuff. But so I work a lot with people with chronic issues. So that's kind of my
Mhm.
specialty, I guess.
And
So,
it's always that ego that comes in because I thought the same thing. I'm like, well, then I guess I'm supposed to help people with gut issues. But then I'm like, well, what do I know? There's
oh no,
that
yeah,
voice
no, but
comes
you
in all
got
the time.
yeah, no, but you got yourself through it. And that's why I love being a breath worker. I could never be a therapist because I don't know what to say to people,
Mhm.
but the breath shows them. So when I train people to do breath work, they're like, what if I don't know what to say? And I'm like, I just tell them we're going to breathe in just a few minutes and you'll be clear by the end of the session. So just hang on just for a moment. Like wait till we breathe. You'll get clear by the end of the session. And the breath always shows them, so then I don't have to tell anyone what to do. And it's amazing. And I didn't have to go to school for 8 freaking years.
Mhm.
But yeah. Anyway, that's my story.
I love it.
Thank
So,
you.
can you talk more about the birth trauma? Just your
Yeah.
understanding and maybe some experiences that have come through.
Yeah. So as I said, I was very resistant. I'm like, why are we going over our birth? This is a waste of time. Your birth has nothing to do with anything. But when we're in the womb, we're just learning everything. We're learning our mom and dad's relationship stuff. We're learning stuff about money. We're learning our patterns. Like our brain is being developed in the womb. From the first time the baby is conceived, oops, we're pregnant. Oh God, this is a really bad time. And the baby can feel all that. And none of it is to blame or put shame on moms or dads or doctors, nurses, whatever. It's just a lot of we can hold on to things. So, for example, there's this one woman, she came to do a breathwork session, and she's like, I've been depressed my whole life. And I was like, okay, well, how far? Like ever since I was born, I swear. She's like, I've just been depressed. I was like, do you know anything about your birth, like at all? She's like, well, I was forcepsed, and my grandpa died like a month before she was born. And that was her mom's everything. Like her mom's dad was everything to her. And so her mom was in that grieving, that whole month of grieving, like right before. So, the baby feels it. And I didn't really go into depth with her because she didn't do like a birth trauma clearing session. She just was like, I just want to feel better. I've always been depressed. So then I just knew to ask her, like, do you know anything about your birth and what happened in the womb? So I knew that was major, like her grandpa dying. And then when she was in the breathwork session, she figured it out on her own. By the end of the session, she's like, "Oh my gosh, I've been carrying my mom's depression and that grief I've been carrying my mom's grief." And she cleared it, and she's like a totally different woman now. Um, so, we learn patterns with time. If you were born early or late, your your first experience of touch from the doctor or nurse, or let's say they didn't catch you when you came out, how that can play out later in life. You don't feel like people support you, like you're always being dropped, or it's so deep. If people got stuck in the womb, like if you're coming out of the womb and you get stuck, they could always feel stuck in their life. So it's pretty amazing because I can tell by the way someone talks, I can hear their birth. I can hear
Mm.
I know I can tell them what their birth is even if they don't know, just by the way they talk. And that are us coming out of the womb, that's some people don't like touch. Some people are crave it. If they were separated from the mom when they came out of the womb, it's so triggering. But when I was in breathwork school, I went to 3 different breathwork schools because I just wanted to learn so much. I wanted to learn everything because I thought it was mind blowing. At first, I was resistant, but then when you hear people's stories, like if they weren't wanted or if they were put up for adoption, and they have this deeply to the core, like I'm not wanted, I'm not lovable, nobody wants me. Um, that can run their whole life, right? And we all have, like, just because I'm a breath worker does I have so much shit still inside me, like that I'm all constantly working through. But I go through everything just like anyone else. And I have blocks and I have patterns and blah blah blah, good and not good patterns, right? So, but when it's present, I'll do my best to clear it. So when you go back to the birth trauma, it can really clear out those like, oh, I'm doing that thing again. dang it, like, what is that? And so people find me when they're like, I want to clear that thing that I always do. Or let's say somewhere in the womb. Okay, well, I know, I'll give you this example. There was this woman and she tried to come out of the womb at 5 months, and the doctor sewed her mom up. So trapped her in there. And then she tried to come out at 7 months and then at 8 months. But the doctor sewed her in. So how that has affected her later, she has huge anxiety and huge feelings of being trapped. And she has a new job opportunity and it's everything she's ever wanted. But she can't get past that fear because her body locks. And she can't get past that that being trapped. Because so is it not, so maybe I shouldn't take that job because that thing's coming up. And so she traps herself. She's just only done one group session, and she's too afraid to move through out of the birth canal, kind of a thing. So if people get stuck in the womb or if they're pulled out, all our patterns like forceps or whatever. I mean, if you tell me your birth, I can tell you some really interesting things. And we just naturally carry stuff until we're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea I was still holding on to that. And so that's why it's really cool to go back to your birth. If you were planned or an accident or not wanted, or they wanted you to be the opposite sex, it is fascinating to because I have all these birth charts. And I got trained by a woman who's been researching people's births for over 60 years. I mean, she's on it and how their patterns play out. So like, let's say, for example, someone had a baby and or the toddler. If I'm around a toddler and they start talking, like, I can't do it. And they want their mommy to do it for them. I'm like, were they born C-section? Or, tell me their birth. Cause that's their like word. I can't do it. And they, I'm a planned C-section. So, I've had to really train myself to move through things. I'm always trying to find the fastest way to do something, which is a good thing sometimes, but sometimes, like being a breath worker, I have to learn how to go through the birth canal. Well, we don't know what it's like to go through the birth canal. So our brain isn't wired to go through it, where our brain is like, give up, someone else do the work, or or how can I do this the fastest way without going through the pain of going through that birth canal, I know it sounds really weird. Or induction.
No.
I work with a lot of pregnant women, and I work with toddlers and kids, whatever. And the induction's a big one because you're pushing the baby out of the womb when they're not ready. So their whole life they will resist you. So they resist it. They'll get back at their parents by just resisting things, or they'll be like, hey, do that thing, and then they won't listen. Yeah, just let me know, whatever. It's very triggering because your body starts feeling stuff, so you just have to take a few deep breaths if we dive into your births.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to share because mine is so prevalent. It was 2 weeks before I was my due date, and my dad was like, I just have this quick business trip to go to. Like, the baby's not going to be due. The first baby's always late. They're never early. So I'll be fine. And of course, he missed my birth. So, and that just says a lot about our relationship. Like, he calls me every single day. We talk all the time, but it's always just like, hey, how you doing? Yeah, nothing, good. Okay. And then it's gone. Like those are our conversations. So it's already so like clear to me that has to do with the way I came into the world.
Yeah. And so he left 2 weeks before you were born? Was he gone for a while?
Left. He was, well, so I think, I don't know how long he was gone for, but maybe like a day. And then my mom went into labor. And so he was trying really hard to get back. Like, he got there. I want to say he like arrived, and the joke was that he was in Phoenix, Arizona. And so my mom was like, I'm going to name her Phoenix. And I'm like, Mom, why didn't you name me Phoenix? That would have been the coolest name. But he didn't want to be reminded every day that he missed my birth. So I get it. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he like arrived and then had to like turn right back around and try to find a ticket home, and
Uh-huh.
he missed it.
Okay, so you were born 2 weeks early?
I was 2 weeks early.
Okay. Yeah, so you might have a pattern of being early, or you might it's one or the other, you know. It's were you weren't preemie, were you?
I don't believe so. No, like I
Okay.
was any special.
Or put in an incubator.
No.
Um and so it could have been like a rebellious thing. Oh, you're gonna leave me? Watch the, like, okay, I'm not important to you.
You think this world just revolves around you? So let
So
me show you.
yeah, how it can play out in relationships. Again, we all have this, so it's not right or wrong, good or bad. It's just, but so like the law of attraction, right? The secret. So it's like, you might have someone who's quick with you, or they kind of like your needs don't matter, or you don't might not feel important. I don't know if that resonates at all.
Mhm.
Or you might have, like, when you're in a relationship, you might have this fear of them like going and doing their thing, and like when you really need them.
Mhm.
So I think my dad was like pissed that I was being born on this day because he had to go fishing. So every guy that I have been with up until this one, they've all planned something else on my birthday. And I'm like, God damn it, I gotta forgive my fucking dad. Oh my God, my dad. I have so many daddy issues. So I don't know if any of that resonates or not, but it but so when you do a breath work session, just you could breathe on I matter, or maybe it was a rebellious thing coming out that early because you wanted your dad there, and it's
Mhm.
it's pretty crazy because I don't talk about this much. My dad had affairs on my mom when I was in the womb, and it took her a long time to admit it. She was always protecting him, and they're still together like almost 60 years. And I'm like, and I was training someone a couple months ago, and even though I've gone over it 100,000 times, like dad cheated. Okay, yeah, that was their shit, not mine, whatever.
Mhm.
Um, I got into a deeper layer of it, and I got to express to my mom, like, I went to her a couple months ago and I started crying, and I was like, I'm sorry to talk to you about this again, because her generation, they don't believe in going back to the past, right? It's like, get over it, move forward, which is great. But then sometimes we have these hiccups, and it's like, so I sat with her, and I was like, I was bawling. I was like, I just wish dad would have been there for you. He was messing around, he was running your guys' business, and he wasn't there for you, and it just makes me so bad that he didn't have the respect for you, and you needed support and he wasn't there. And so that's my whole life with guys, right? It's like that I don't trust men and they don't show up for me. So I've really had to work on that. And it took a long time to get the guy I have now in my life. It took a lot of breath work.
Mhm.
So, but that's like something that came up. So if it ever if it ever comes up, if you ever have a talk with your dad or something, it'll just appear when it's supposed to. But
Right.
anyway, it's pretty healing. Now my mom's in a place where she's pretty open about what happened while I was in the womb. It took her like 7 years to tell me, though. So, but it's pretty fascinating. And then what happens when you do talk about it with your parents, like, how was it for you and what was really going on? Some parents do not tell you, they do not want to talk about it, and that's fine. Again, it's not to blame moms or anything, but when my mom when she finally tells me like what she really went through, my body releases. It's like a softening and like a compassion. And
Mhm.
then boom, that pattern starts clearing out. Like, um very deep wounded, our biggest upsets and triggers and trusting people, like it just starts to slowly melt away with time. Again, I know that this comes in layers, so I I just let my body do its thing. I'm like, God dang, like 2 months ago, I was like, God, how many times do I have to go over this stupid affair? Like, but it's just whenever my body was ready to release it, and so sometimes it just happens in layers. So I guess
Yeah.
I'll be working through it for a while.
I know. I always tell people that too, because I teach a weekly class and people come in, they're like, oh, well, like I'm not able to do this, or I met with this pattern again. And I'm like, listen, like don't look at me like I have all these answers, that I've healed all these patterns. That is so far from the truth. Like these patterns, they're patterns because they continuously come up. And every time they come
Yeah.
up, it's about meeting yourself where you're at that time when you're seeing that pattern again. And it's always it's the same pattern, but you're
Yeah.
coming at it with a different set of eyes at each time.
Yeah. So you were born 2 weeks early and then drugs, no drugs, and were you fast birth?
I'm pretty sure it was relatively fast.
Like you
My
come out
mom
quick.
definitely had an epidural.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, everything else was pretty smooth,
Yeah. Okay.
as far as I know.
Yeah.
And my mom's pretty open. I'm always like, on our birthdays, my sister and I were always like, so what were you doing at this time during my birthday? Like,
Oh,
yeah, so they're good about that. But yeah, I was
yeah.
just thinking about it too. Like my boyfriend, anytime he hates when I call us homebodies, but we are. And so anytime he does like have a plan to go do something, I'm like, what? Where are you going? You're leaving.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that comes in. Obviously, it's like, everything's fine. I love when he goes to do things, but I do, when you said that, it was like there's definitely that little bit of
Yeah.
like urgency to like, wait.
Right. Right. And so now that we kind of were talked about it, now when you do a breathwork session on yourself or whatever, um, it'll start to move out, So then it's like, that, whatever that feeling is that we
Right.
get. So, um, yeah, cool.
That's
How
really
about
cool.
how about you, Josh? Do you want to go over it?
Well, I'm trying to remember. I know my mom, so I was the first born of five
Okay.
kids, and
Mhm.
all the stress of he was like 23, she was 19,
Mhm.
just babies. And yeah, just she talks a lot about the stress that existed with him, and just trying to make it work as kids.
Do you know anything about the birth part?
Um, I don't remember. I know I could find out.
Okay.
He's open with that.
Like if they pulled you out
I don't
or
think so.
forceps or okay. Um, can you kind of describe so something like from that part of your birth, how it can play out later? Um, but here's the thing about birth trauma too. Like it's all perfect and it's part of our design. Because now, like, look at the work you're doing. You're helping people break through the mind and the body so that, that's the thing. The good thing about it is we're eventually, if we're doing our calling, we have to work through those hiccups. And so like the f- be yeah, that's a big one. It's hold on, I'm not getting the words yet. Maybe it'll come to you. But like not being able to enjoy or I think the biggest thing is like guilt and burdens and not being able to experience joy or I don't know if these are all the things that you've had to work through. Religious shame. Your dad was scary. So was she frightened? Were you frightened a lot as a little boy? Or tell me how you were as a little boy.
Yeah. So I grew up very shy,
Yeah.
and she would always just say, "You were just so shy." And I've thought about it. I'm like, okay, is that because I'm not shy now,
Uh-huh.
and I feel like it might have been her fear of just trying to keep me safe,
Right,
like
right.
that much love and also her fear that she didn't know, uh like there was no one to talk to. She had to keep
Mhm.
it all in.
Yeah.
And then when
Like
I
a
came along, I was the buddy. I was the, okay, we'll get this through this together, you and I.
oh yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Is your mom still alive?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, yeah, so I'm seeing like this held back. So I mean, women in that time too, they had to let themselves back and not speak up. And so there might be like a held energy, like So yeah, if you can find out a little bit more about like the birth part too.
Okay.
Um, so if your mom was like, did you think she was like on eggshells a lot?
Hmm.
So how that can play out is like this big scary guy, your dad, and then just holding yourself back and not wanting to step on the toes of others, and which I'm sure a lot of it you've broken through already. But yeah, it'll be interesting. So, and then were you planned? Were you wanted?
Um, so I grew up Mormon where we're taught to I'm trying to remember. I left 5 years ago, so a lot of the verbiage has left my mind,
Uh-huh.
luckily. But um, it's multiply and replenish the earth.
Oh
That's a commandment, and so it's kind of like you get married, you have to just like you. There's no sex before marriage, and make sure you're pure. Save yourself for marriage, and then all of a sudden turn it on, and you want to bring all the babies into the world. And so I feel like that's how it was. It was the marriage happened, and then it was like, when it's my time, God will send me down here. And
yeah.
so I think that's what happened.
Okay. Um, can you tell me like a little bit of your patterns, like when you're starting new projects or when you're in your creative mode, like any hiccups that you might have? Because I might be able to tell you a little bit about your birth.
So for the longest time, I didn't know how to dream, like think big. I didn't know how to envision, or well,
Mm.
I still struggle with that, where it's like, I don't know what I want. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to think about myself.
Yeah. Yeah, that could really that's it. That because your mom, she's like, well, this is what God wants. And so it's like all about pleasing God and the man and whatever. I don't know. There's something in there with that. There could be.
Yeah.
Um and so do you have a pattern where you can't tell the difference between your head and your heart? Or
Um,
are you in the mind a lot, or
yeah. And
like when you breathe, do you go like head, heart, head? Like how is when you do breath work, how is that process for you?
it feels like it's heavily mind at the beginning. And then I can
Hmm.
feel a moment where there's a drop in. And then
Yeah.
I didn't know to call it, that's when I'm in my heart, but I just knew my mind wasn't running the show.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, find out. Can you text your mom or something? Text her or something and ask her. Because yeah, but I think you just said it though. There's something with your mom and your dad, and she probably had to hold herself back. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm making any sense at all, or if that resonates at all, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Well, and she and I talk now. Like I did breath work on her maybe 6 or 8 months ago.
Oh, cool.
Because she's been on her journey,
Uh-huh.
and it's cool just the connection that we have now. Because it's been tumultuous as I left Mormonism, and
Hmm.
with that, all those beliefs that are tied in there. But when I guided her through breath, it was like she thought, she's like, how is Josh in my head? I can feel all this love inside me. And I was like, it was you. It was your breath, and it was this connection to God
Hmm.
or divinity or whatever.
Hmm.
And so yeah, it was just really special for me to have that opportunity to just facilitate her and hold her through that. I felt like, well, in some ways, I feel like that little boy that's been trying to measure up or to take care of her. It felt like I got to in that moment, even though it wasn't my job as a little boy.
Yeah.
It felt like in some ways that little boy got to fulfill that finally after decades, you know.
Right. And you said like after you were born, it was like you and your mom, right? And that's how another thing that plays out, right? It's just normal and natural and it just happens sometimes, but that might have been a lot of pressure on you as a little boy to please mom, you know? And that's how the birth or you being born or created, it could have put a lot of pressure on you or burdens. When yeah, but that's cool that you got to do a breath work session with her.
And like for once, show her like, because if she was even trying to identify that feeling, that love that she was all of a sudden feeling during breath work, identifying it as you instead of her own self, that could be a pattern too for her of like at 19, right before, as a kid, having to answer to God or having to answer her parents, having to answer to God, doing what God wants next. And then getting married and having, doing whatever he wants you to do. And then having a baby, it's like, oh, well, I'll do everything for him. So it's like, oh, she's always like splitting herself into different parts. And so you brought her to this breathwork experience where suddenly she has this part. So it can't all be her, but it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Since your mom had such a strong feeling of you coming in or like, like that God thing. And so um how are your gifts? How are your intuitive gifts?
So
They're becoming more and more exciting. Sorry to interrupt.
well, some of it was like I needed a guide or a mentor to point out
Right.
how I receive inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because I've done my human design reading
Mm-hmm.
a couple times now, and they just are like, you have so much intuition coming through you. It's this, 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 and this. And I was like, well, nobody told me it was that, and that. And so
Right.
I'm listening or I'm trying to have this vision or something, and that's not how I receive it. And um, so yeah, I'm developing these gifts right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, let me know what happened at your birth or if your mom was knocked out or if she had you naturally or anything or if you were pulled out or C-section and then I'll send you these charts. It's so cool. Like
Okay.
if you think human design is cool, this is on that level too.
Okay. So
I
fun.
have yeah. And it'll really help so like let's say if there was head trauma or something, not saying there was, but if there was, it'll help to gently unlock that head trauma or if they, whatever, I don't know your birth yet, but it'll unlock it and then your gifts will really come through. It's so that's why it's really cool to go back to what happened at your birth, if it was traumatic or not, because um that trauma does get stuck in the body, or let's say the mom held the baby. Oh, the baby's coming too quick. I gotta close my legs, or the doctor's not here, and they close the legs. I mean, that's scoliosis is that's where scoliosis, most of it comes from, is if they held the baby in and it jammed their spine.
Mm.
And so anyway, that the body starts unlocking when we go that far back. It's not for everyone, but when people really are like, that's when before I found breath work, I'm like, why do I keep doing this? I do this with everything. And then when I started asking, why do I do this? This needs to stop. And then that's when like breath work really came in. When I started I'm like, is God doing this to me or am I doing this to me? Is God causing this outbreak or am I doing it? And so I had to undo everything I was taught, as you know, um, through your guys' journeys. I had to just throw it all away and just start fresh and figure it out on my own. And the breath showed me, you know.
So when you were learning breath work,
Mhm.
was this all this birthing history stories part of that training, or was it
Yeah,
something you found?
yes. like that this type of breath work is called rebirthing breath work.
Okay.
It's like from the 60s, late 60s. Yeah, that was part of the training. And if I would have known that, I would have never done it. But I was drunk most of the time. And at that time, I was out of my body and numbed out. So I didn't know what I got myself into. And
Part of you that
yeah,
needed it.
so I was trained. And so, like, the first few years after I got my certification, I didn't necessarily do the whole birth trauma session with people. I'm like, I just want people to come in, tell me their problems, and we breathe. That's all. So that's what I did the first few years. And then people wanted more. And I'm like, I got something for you. Fill out this birth questionnaire. I can take you deeper. So, and then but hearing people's stories, I got so addicted to it because I love psychology and I love, like, why do we do the things we do? And, I love, human design. And oh my gosh, when I found human design, that changed everything for me because I'm a projector.
Mm.
I like to take naps and I shame myself my whole life for taking naps. And like, why can I not work a 9 to 5? And how come I have to have a separate side of the house? Like, I have to have my own space and I have to, like, how am I supposed to have kids if I need that much alone time? So it's like someone gave me permission to take naps.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt about learning my design. I'm a generator, and I was like, so this is why everybody I call, like every yoga studio I call to try to get a breathwork gig or anything, it never works out. But when I sit back and do something that I love doing that has nothing to do with breathwork, all of a sudden I get the call.
Yes.
I get calls. Like, so I'm like, okay, it's that same thing. It's just that permission to be like,
Yeah.
all right, take
And
a
I
step
love
back and do what I want to do.
I love generators because my mom and my sister are generators, and I always know when their answer is no, but they say yes anyway. I could tell in their tone of voice. I'm like, tone of voice, or they're like, sure, and I'm like, your whole voice changed.
Mhm.
I do not do it if you do not want to freaking do it, okay?
Right.
Like, because I don't want you to hate me.
Guilty. And Josh is a manifester. Surprise,
Oh,
surprise.
fun.
Going to bring a lot of his gifts to the world.
Yeah, you have lots of gifts. Many, don't you? Don't they have many gifts?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Very exciting stuff.
yeah.
Just found his new gift of making rattles. Show her your rattle you just made.
Oh,
So I made a drum a month ago, and then I went back to the same lady and made a rattle yesterday.
It's so cool.
that's beautiful.
So it is bear skin.
Wow, that's really beautiful.
Yeah, it's so fun, and it's so the lady that teaches it is very like respectful of the animal. She treats it as a ceremony, and it's sacred to go through this process. And she described so this is masculine, the stick, and then the rattle itself is feminine. And then you put the medicine inside, and I intuitively decided what went inside. And then when you combine the two, it creates the sound, and that's where the medicine happens, is with the masculine and the feminine. And I had no idea. I just thought it was a rattle that made cool noise.
Oh, that's really beautiful.
I love that.
That's awesome. Do you use that in your breathwork sessions?
So well, I just got it yesterday or 2 days ago.
Oh, yeah.
So this Friday coming up, the lady, her name's Cherie, she has a space, and her friend do drum journeys. Have you done a
Awesome.
drum journey before?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So I did one maybe 6 weeks ago.
Oh,
And as these two ladies were facilitating and holding space, there were like 13 of us, and it was 25 minutes, and I was just experiencing it. And I was like, well, okay, this is very similar to breath work, but what if we bring the two together? And so, because it felt like my spirit or my body, something wanted breath work to be happening at the same time as the drums.
Mm-hmm.
So I met with the lady after and I was like, have you done breath work in your space? And she said, no. She said, somebody asked me that last week. And I said, well, let's create an event. So we're going to do it this Friday. And we're still kind of feeling into like how the format,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know. I don't think there's a right or wrong, but I think there's probably better or best,
Mm-hmm.
good, better, best kind of thing. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. You just show up and it'll just appear. I swear to God.
Okay.
Um, so I was trained by like the old school rebirthers.
Mm.
They're like in their 80s now. And they used to do like 2 hours of talking breath work and then breathe. And I'm like, dude, no one has time for this. So a lot of like the rules as a breath worker, I had to throw out because it doesn't work for me. And um uh you just show up and it'll just form itself. It'll surprise you. Like your body will just guide it. And every session will get better and better. Like every session I'm constantly tweaking something or like, oh, okay, I needed more space to not talk there, or. So so even just like hitting, you got it, just hitting rattling and closing their eyes and just take 3 deep breaths. So when I don't know what to do, like when I'm guiding big groups, which I get really nervous and I feel sick and I just go through it every single time. All I do, I just say, let's just take 3 slow, deep breaths. That's how I start everything because I don't know what the fuck to say. But that'll be so cool. And I'm sure you'll have the lights dim and, yeah, just show up. It'll just come through.
Yeah. Every
So it's
time I
like, yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I
Oh,
was just,
so
you go.
I was gonna say, like, so if you're doing like a 20-minute, like, so how can you, because when people, if you have like a short time, if let's say it's 20 minutes. So like if I only have 20 minutes to breathe, then I just remind myself to go really slow. So then they drop in within like 2 minutes. And then the 20 minutes feels like a freaking well, to them, it feels like an hour to me, but it's like 2 minutes to them. And they'll want more. And then have your business cards ready. Have your flyers and business cards ready. But yeah, just whatever you do is perfect. You can't mess it up.
Yeah, nobody knows because they don't understand what breath work is. So there's no
Yeah,
way to.
like so a lot of people even they don't. One time I went to Joshua Tree and this old school breath worker, he talked he had a really long, slow birth. Okay. His talk, I don't need to know what breath work is. Just lie my ass down and show me how to breathe. I don't need to know that I'm holding my breath. I don't need to know all that stuff because people they'll start getting pissy and squirmy. So okay, let's get you guys set up and let's get you comfortable. And I don't tell anyone what breath work is. Most people who come in, like when I do in person, I don't say anything. I'm like, okay, just unless I'm like, if people are scared, which people do get scared here, I'll say, hey, there's going to be moments where you feel good, and there's going to be moments where you feel kind of slight discomfort, and just take your time, go slow. But I always regret saying that. I should just drop them in. Like, let's lie down, let's get you comfy. Okay, ready? And just take a few deep breaths. Because yeah, because I don't want to take away from their experience by telling people what breath work is. And, I just don't want to talk too much. But yeah,
3, 2, 1, jump.
yeah, yeah. Um,
And it's different. Like for me, I find that it just depends on the class. Like even I teach the same class every Monday. And this morning I was like, oh, I might as well get ahead of myself and get my playlist ready. But then I looked at the sign up sheet and I'm like, okay, there's only a couple of people signed up. And I'm like, who knows? Like, because every time I
yeah,
prepare, I throw it all out the window the second I get there. So it's like just me
oh,
as prepared is just being aligned. Like I don't
right,
set anything up because depending on someone might come in crying from a hard day and then we're going to focus on whatever that is.
right.
Like it's just you prepare
Yeah,
by being ready for anything and
yeah. And
not having any expectations.
yeah, when I teach people, when I train them, I just say, just show up. Like, just no matter how you're feeling, like, yeah, have your music playlist, but um, just show up because no matter how you're feeling or what, I gave a talk in front of 100 people 2 weeks ago, and I breathed them too. And I had this whole presentation and what I was going to say. And as soon as I got in front of everyone, it's like the divine had a totally different plan. They're like, throw that out, tell them your rape story, and like be real and raw. I just like whenever you show up, there's a totally different plan that happens. So bring your rattle and bring some good music and some candles or something, and just show up, and your love's enough,
Mm.
Mm. I love that.
because yeah, we don't. It's kind of like birth. Like I have people who plan this birth for their baby, and sometimes the baby has a totally different plan. So it's like I'm constantly learning surrender as a breath worker.
Mm.
And there's moments where I'm like, I'll say I'm gonna breathe a celebrity or something, which I don't care about celebrities, but it's exciting, right? Because they have such a huge platform and they're gonna share your work, right? And then I'm like, oh my God. And I'm expecting so much from their session and then don't hear from them for a while because they're processing. And I'm like, but I didn't, it's like, I'm like, God dang, well, I was just hoping way too much for their session. Like, I just need to calm down and not try so hard.
One of the qualities we got taught to embody during our training was the quality of being agendaless. And so I remember like learning that word the first time, being like, agendaless. Okay.
Yeah. What is
And
that?
just not having an agenda.
Oh,
Agendaless.
agenda-less. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember being like, okay. And then starting looking around my life, like, damn, I always have an agenda for everything. Like,
Uh-huh.
so that was a whole shift for me. And
Yeah.
it's worked every time, like not having a clear
Yeah.
intention, but not having an agenda.
Totally.
Yeah, it's a huge
Yeah,
difference.
it's a practice every day. It's like, okay, I feel like shit. I have a session in 10 minutes. Today I didn't feel like crap though. Normally I feel like crap before a podcast or
Mm.
something. And I'm like, well, I already know the drill. Just show up and then it clears. It clears. As soon as we start talking, then the energy moves from my body. It's so
Mm.
annoying. I'm like, oh God, because
Energy.
I have to learn not to take my body symptoms personally before a session.
Mm.
But and what I'm thinking, like let's say for example, someone is really stressed about money. I will be so stressed about money out of nowhere that right before their session. And
Mm.
then a lot of times I forget, like, oh, and then when they say I'm so stressed about money, and I'm like, oh frick, that's where that's coming from. It's like, oh dang, or like my neck hurts before someone's session and they come in, you already know. It's not easy being a breath worker.
It's so many things to be aware of, and that's a huge one I'm still learning of,
Yeah,
like knowing when it's not my energy, when it's someone else's energy.
yeah,
What's
yeah.
that?
As soon as we start the session, it moves.
Mm.
I'm like, oh, there we go. Okay. Oh God. And so it's like a practice of not taking myself personally, or my thoughts or God, we don't get paid enough for this shit. We're constantly working on ourselves. No, it's good. You guys are earth angels for sure. I always pre-warn people. I'm like, are you sure you want to do breath work? Like, are you sure?
Open up a whole can of
I'm
worms.
like, okay. I pre-warned you.
Buckle up.
Yeah.
So,
So,
Kimberly, can you share? I was looking at a little bit at your website. Can you share like how people can work with you?
hmm Um, you mean like the types of sessions that I do or how
Yeah,
how to reach me or
all of that. Yeah.
um well, the fastest way to reach me is through Instagram, Breathe with Kimberly Rose. I get back to everyone if I feel like their intentions or you can feel someone's heart. So if they're not like energy vampires. Um and I have all my links there, if they want to book a session. So the first session is book a one-on-one with me. That one we just kind of go over whatever's really weighing on you. And we might talk for 30 to 60 minutes, just kind of talk therapy. And then they breathe for an hour. So there's that one. And then I have the birth trauma clearing session. I do work with women with fertility, but that's rare, but I do. And they'll reach out to me. And so I used to have that session up, but you can just scratch that one out. But I do $10 monthly group sessions on Zoom, and they're very private. Like you can have your cameras off and everyone's muted. So then it's really private. And it just feels like it's me and you, through your breathwork session. But everything's on my Instagram or my website, breathewithkimberlyrose.com. Yeah. So the biggest, as a breath worker, the biggest thing for me how do you get this out there? How do you put into words what breath work is? It's so hard to kind of structure and market what you're doing. And someone taught me through this one course that I did that just put a free thing in your bio, just put something for free. So I pushed a lot of free breath work the last 2.5 years. And that's what really grew trust. And that's what really grew my business. I had 800 followers 2.5 years ago. And now I have like over 17,000. So that is the power from one breath worker to another, just having that, hop on a live once a week or every other week. And let's do mini breath work real quick, and then get your rattle out, just make it real special for them. And that's how I gained a lot of trust, but that's how people can reach me. Through my Instagram.
And I wanted to ask you a quick question I saw that you do like breath work for kids.
Yeah.
And so I've been asked a lot in my little community. A lot of people are like, you need to do this for kids. You need to do this for kids.
Totally.
And so I just do very simple breath because I wasn't trained specifically for kids. So I want to make sure I feel like I'm doing okay. We just do it very simple, like nothing crazy, like no pressure on how quick they need to be breathing. So I don't know if you have any other advice for breath.
I wasn't trained to do kids either, but the kids were popping up. So I had to learn from the session. And so it's just that same thing, just show up. And I've just learned from the kids. So with kids, depending on the age, under 5, they don't need more than 20 minutes. They're clear and done in 20 minutes. It's really amazing. And they're just themselves. And so sorry, what was the question about working with kids?
I guess just touching on like how often you do it and what's
I do one a week. I do a kid session. Toddlers, I do a couple a month. And then last night I was with a 13-month-old baby, and I was showing her how to take deep breaths. I should have videotaped it, but it wasn't my kid. So maybe at 5 or 6 years of age on up, they could do a full hour. So they'll let you know when they're done.
Mm-hmm.
But you just kind of feel your body. So I had a 4-year-old, a woman, a mom came to me. She goes, my daughter was forceps. She had a really traumatic birth. A new doctor came in that I didn't know, and they took over the whole birth. And it was really traumatic on my little girl. And then they separated her from me. So as a 4-year-old, she's really traumatic, or she is deathly afraid of men. And she's just deathly afraid of people coming in, and she's afraid. And so I was like, wow, I don't know how I'm going to do this session. But so I just kind of hung out, and she was hiding behind her mom, and her mom was in the room, and the little girl was on the Zoom. And so I just kind of like laid on my side with her, I laid down on the floor, and it took about 5 minutes for her to trust me. And then I just kept letting her know, okay, we're just going to breathe in. I am safe. I am safe. And then she kept saying, so we said, I am safe for like and my mommy and daddy love me and it's safe to trust, like little cute affirmations like that. And I had her breathe it in. So every kid session is different. So, but you'll learn from it and you can't mess it up. And even if they get like 10 minutes in, they're going to feel better and their parents will notice. Like that 4-year-old girl's parents, they're like, we have never seen this side of her yet. We actually have our little girl back. So because she's always been afraid since she was born. So, and she got it at 4 years old.
Mm.
Can you imagine getting this when you were a little kid? I would
I
have
know.
changed everything.
Everything. I was a scared little kid too,
Me
so
too.
that would have been amazing.
Yeah. Did I answer your question?
Yes. Yeah.
And it's crazy. A lot of breath workers aren't trained to work with kids. I mean, we trained on it for like 30 minutes,
Yeah.
but I never had kids to practice on.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the kids need breath work. They need it. So I'm sure you guys will start breathing more kids. I'm getting more kids. I'm actually breathing like 127 kids tomorrow out of school.
Oh, I love
And
that.
and I haven't done that since 2018, before COVID days. So I'm like, wow, I don't like what I'm not even planning for it. I'm just gonna show up because the energy, I might be like, okay, I'm gonna talk for 2 minutes to the kids. Well, maybe they don't have the attention span to listen to me talk. I don't know how, how kids are now. And so I'm just gonna show up and see what happens because I don't know how I'm gonna do this. But I know when I feel the vibes and feel like what kids are watching me and what are, I'm just gonna feel out the room and then take it from there because I don't know how you can plan for that.
Mm-hmm.
But we are gonna lie down and breathe. In the gym. I do know that. It's gonna be hilarious.
Cute.
But I've been wanting to work in schools and with kids. So it's like, okay, finally it's starting to present itself again. So
Yeah. I had the opportunity last year of someone invited me to do a school, but it was like one of those teachers' days. So it was just for the teachers, not the kids.
yeah.
And one of the teachers reached out to me a couple months later and was like, can you come do this after school program with me? Because I think it's so important for the kids to know this. So they invited me back again this year. So I'm so
Awesome.
excited that people are open to it and really getting a lot out of it.
Yeah. And I'm doing a lot of like businesses. So I'll go in person or on Zoom and breathe like corporate, that get into that corporate energy. And they love it because it's like drugs, They love it.
It's so true.
But good, yeah, keep doing that. I breathe a lot of teachers like in the kids' classrooms
Yeah.
too. And it's yeah, just keep going. It just takes time. Don't worry, the money will come. It does come. You just have to keep going.
Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
all that advice and just sharing all of your wisdom with us. This was
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh, anytime. You can ask me anything. I really just want to help other breath workers like figure it out. Because I have had to figure it out. And sometimes I'm like, dang, it's just going up and up and up. And then I have a slow, it's still always like this. I'm like, can it just be like this?
That would be
But it's
boring.
not. It's like with anyone who has their own business, it's never steady. It's
Yeah.
just one or the other, ups and flow, ups and downs and flows. And I've learned how to rest if I'm not too busy. I've definitely learned how to rest. So I take advantage of my rest days when I get them.
Definitely. They're important.
Yeah.
Well, we always like to end with a message you would like to share, even though you've shared lots of wisdom, lots of messages during this, but anything else you want to say?
I think the only thing I always tell people is just take a few deep breaths through the day. Just take 3 deep breaths in any moment and it'll help you feel better.
Always. Our life force.
Yeah.
Kimberly, you are such a gift. Thank you.
Thank you. You too. You guys are amazing.
What a great episode. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Let us know what you took from that. Leave some comments, share with a friend who also might resonate with the story. Subscribe, like, all those things so that we can spread the word about our podcast. And so all of our beautiful stories that we get to hear from our amazing guests get to be shared around the world. We appreciate you as a listener, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Deeper Awareness podcast, where the journey of self-discovery and inner growth continues to unfold. We hope this episode has ignited a spark within you and inspired you to embrace a more conscious and authentic existence by looking within. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for upcoming episodes, where we'll continue to explore the transformative power of breathwork and emotional healing. Continue the conversation and stay connected with us on Instagram. Follow at Deeper Awareness Podcast to receive daily inspiration, valuable tips, and updates on our latest episodes and offerings. We'd love to hear your thoughts and insights from today's show, so feel free to share them in the comments below or tag us in your posts. Your engagement and feedback mean the world to us as we strive to continue to create content that resonates and empowers our incredible community. Together, we can continue exploring the depths of consciousness, fostering genuine connections, and supporting each other on our transformative journeys. This episode is brought to you by You Belong Breathwork, your destination for transformative healing and self-discovery. At You Belong Breathwork, we believe in the power of breath to unlock the deepest parts of ourselves, leading to profound insights and a greater sense of connection and belonging. Whether you're seeking emotional healing, a deeper connection with yourself, or a path to authenticity, our breathwork sessions, retreats, and coaching programs are designed to guide you on this transformative journey. Our experienced facilitators are here to hold space for you as you explore the depths of your consciousness and discover the infinite potential within. Visit youbelongbreathwork.com to explore our offerings and download a free guided breathwork session. Thank you for being a part of our Deeper Awareness community. Stay connected, stay curious, and may you embrace your true essence with love and compassion. Goodbye for now, and see you in the next episode.